start with just reading the scripture. Please join me. It is 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verses 4 through 5. My speech and my proclamation were made not with persuasive words of wisdom, but with a demonstration of the Spirit and of power, so that your faith might not rest on human wisdom, but rather on the power of God. Inside the cave lives an old woman who appears unaffected, actually, by the rush of time and the confusion and strife of daily life. She attends to other things. She has a strong and a longer sense of time and a deep capacity for vision. She spends most of her time actually weaving in a cave where light and shadows play. She wants to fashion the most beautiful garment in the whole world. She's been at this weaving project for a very long time, and she's reached the point of making a fringe for the edge of an exquisitely designed cloak. She wants that fringe to be special. She wants it to be meaningful as well as elegant. So she weaves into it porcupine quills. She likes the idea of using something that could poke you as an element of beauty. She likes turning things around and seeing life from odd angles. In order to use the porcupine quills, though, she must flatten each one with her teeth. And after years of biting hard on the quills, her teeth have become worn down to the nubs, and they barely rise above her gums. Still, the old woman keeps biting down and she keeps weaving on. The only time she interrupts her weaving is when she goes to stir the stew that simmers in a great cauldron in the back of her cave. That simmering stew contains all the seeds and roots that become grains and plants and herbs that sprout up all over the surface of the earth. If the old woman fails to stir the ancient stew once in a while, the fire will scorch the ingredients, and there's no telling what trouble might result from that. So, the old woman divides her efforts between the weaving, the exquisite cloak, and the stirring of this elemental stew. In a sense, she's responsible for weaving things together as well as for stirring things up. She senses when the time has come to let the weaving go and to stir things up again. A black dog watches her every move, and this dog, who was there all along, seemingly asleep, awakens as soon as the weaver woman turns her attention from one task to the other. As she begins stirring the soup, the dog moves over slyly to where the weaving lies on the floor of the cave. As the dog picks up a loose thread with his teeth, he begins to pull on it. As he pulls on the loose thread, the beautiful garment begins to unravel. Since each thread has been woven into another, pulling upon one begins to undo them all. And as the great stew is being stirred up, the elegant garment just comes apart and becomes a chaotic mess all over the floor. When the old woman returns to take up her handiwork again, she finds nothing but chaos where there had been a beautiful garment. The cloak she has woven with great care has been pulled apart, and the fringe is all undone. The effort of the creation has been turned to naught. The old woman sits and looks silently upon the remnants of her once beautiful design, and she ignores the presence of that silly dog as she stares intently at the tangle of undone threads and distorted patterns. After a while, she bends down and she picks up a loose thread, and she begins to weave the whole thing again. As she pulls thread after thread from the chaotic mess, she begins to again imagine the most beautiful garment in the world. As she weaves, new visions of elegant designs beyond what had preceded them appear before her, and her old hands just begin knowingly to give them vibrant shape. She's forgotten the cloak she was weaving before as she concentrates on capturing this new design and weaving it into the most beautiful garment the world has ever seen. What do you hear in this story? What do you feel? I love this story. It's actually a Native American story, and I love it because for me, it reflects a lot of the things that I feel and I value as I live day to day. It resonates with hard work, with resilience, with sacrifice, absolutely, but also with excitement about what's being created and knowing that I have to be willing to stir the pot for the greater good, even if it results in setbacks.